Yo, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining this session. This session is going to be focused on pitching to pros. We're rapidly approaching Demo Day. Demo Day will be taking place on September 9th. And so it's about time that we start thinking about how exactly do you want to present your project if you're presenting at Demo Day, and just overall, whenever it is that you're going to be pitching to an audience, not a customer pitch, not an investor pitch, but just a wider audience. How are you actually going to be doing that? So let me share my screen. I would really appreciate if someone in the chat would let me know if you can see my screen once it's presented. So let's give that a try. Okay. All right, it should be visible now. Awesome, great. Well, again, thank you very much for joining. Let's jump right into it. So my name is Sebastian. I'm part of the Arweave core team. And at Arweave, and also before then at Techstars, something that it's really been very pleasant for me to do is to help projects craft meaningful and impactful pitches. And so, with Demo Day around the corner, I think it's time to start thinking about like how exactly you want to present your project. So in this session, we're going to be covering 3 key topics. So we're going to be talking about why identifying the audience that you're going to be talking to is crucial, and specifically what kind of audience you're going to be presenting to at Demo Day. What are the goals of the different types of pitches that you might encounter, and what specifically is the goal for Demo Day, and how the right structure of your pitch will help you get first, like attain the attention, then retain the attention of the audience that you're targeting. So let's get started. The first step to craft an effective pitch is to know that who are you actually going to be pitching to. Different audiences obviously require different levels of detail. So for example, if you're pitching to people who are already familiar with your project or already familiar with Web3 services, then you might want to skip some of the introductory part and just jump right into the more technical aspects of how it is that your solution works. Conversely, if you're pitching to a more general audience, then you might want to stress not so much the technical details of how it all works, but much more the purpose of it. So why does it matter? What problem is it solving, or what solution is it? What opportunity is it actually seizing? So for Demo Day, who are you going to be talking to? You're going to be talking to 2 groups primarily. You're going to be talking to active members of the Arweave ecosystem and to potential investors. This means that you should probably focus on explaining the relevance of your project, how people will benefit from it, and share some level of technical details about like how it works, but without going super deeply into the nuts and bolts of it. So, therefore you must ask yourself like, okay, what will potential investors and what will the community really care about? And the Arweave community will mostly care about how your project actually helps the Arweave ecosystem. So, how it makes their lives easier when building a decentralized application or something like that. And also how it contributes to the wider sort of like trustless web services in general. For investors, they will care about that as well, but they will be thinking more about how profitable your project will be and how widely used it will be. In both cases, making sure that the audience is excited about your project is going to be way more important than explaining in detail how it actually works. And so this is very, very important. Demo Day is not a customer or a user pitch. These are 2 very distinct types of pitches, and they differ in the goals that they chase. So what should be the goal of your pitch? If it were a customer pitch, your goal would be, to explain how it works and sort of like introduce people to your solution and hopefully get them to use it for a long time and eventually pay for it in one way or in another. But in this case, for demo day, your goal is far more simpler. The goal of your pitch should be to get a meeting. That's it. Okay, so, okay, easy enough, but how exactly do you get a meeting? Well, you get a meeting by impressing the audience. Okay, fair enough. But how exactly do you do that? The way that you do that is by having the right structure and the right content in place. So your pitch needs to be gripping enough in the beginning to attract the attention of someone, right? So they're constantly going to be asking themselves, like, why am I listening to this? So you need to, grab that attention. Then you need to give sufficient information for people to actually care and stay throughout the pitch. And then you need to make it succinct enough or concise enough that people are going to be wanting to reach out to you later and ask some other questions, right? So how exactly it works or how it works for their specific use case. So here's a very sort of rough structure that works best for demo days. You start with an introduction, about a minute, followed by an explanation of how your solution works. And then you wrap things up with a landing that should be about 30 seconds. So let's jump into each of these elements. A good introduction will basically cover, you want to introduce yourself and you want to introduce your project. There's a trend out there of people just starting out with sort of like the problem and then circling to, all right, this is my name and this is the project, but it comes across a little bit like an infomercial. It would be something like, are your knives dull? Not anymore. Hi, I'm Sebastian. I'm here to tell you about Wonder Knife, the never dull knife. Like, you don't want to be that person with that very cheesy pitch. So make it very straightforward, just like who you are, why are you talking there, and what it is that you're presenting. It's super important also to let people know from the beginning, like why they should listen to you. Like, why are you the right person to talk about this problem? So I started out this presentation by giving a little bit like my bona fides, saying something like, okay, at Arweave, I've done this before, and at Texars, I also help with pitches. And so that gives the audience the impression or the idea that, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. I'm going to listen. So you should try to emulate that and do something similar. So introduce yourself, introduce your background, and crucially, name the project. And ideally, you do that in one sentence, right? So name the project and also what exactly is it that it does. So try to distill it, try to boil it down to the essence of what your project is actually trying to achieve. Okay, once you've introduced your project, it's time to talk about the problem that you're solving or the opportunity that you're enabling or seizing. So there's two ways that you can do this. The first option is to exemplify with a story about what the problem actually is. So, we all know Medium, and Medium is this blogging platform. A problem there was that all of a sudden they decided to enable a paywall, and you as a content creator, all of a sudden you didn't have as many readers because they probably needed to pay to gain access to that content, and you didn't get anything out of it. So that's an example of like, all right, so maybe I'm going to be be enabling a decentralized blogging platform. The second option that you have is to compare your project to something that people are already familiar with. So Arweave has done this very successfully, basically saying like, yo, we built a Dropbox for Arweave. Everyone understands that. Okay, once you've introduced the problem, it's time to present the solution. And again, you have a couple of options of how you actually want to do this. By far, the most effective way of doing this is to show your solution at work, right? And here, again, you have two options. The first option is you can do it, the two options are you can show it live or you can show a recording. Now, live demos are obviously more powerful because people then see that it's actually working right then and there. You're taking a gamble. And if it works well, perfect. People, really trust it. Downside of that, flip side, is that there's always trouble with live demos. So something that is very valid for you to do is also just to pre-record it, something that is accurate, right? Like you never want to line a live demo or in a demo in general and say like, oh yeah, we can do this and actuality, it actually doesn't work. But you can pre-record it, and that's also completely fine. In any way, or either case, it's very important to focus on the key features when you're presenting a demo. Don't go into every single possibility of what your solution or project does, because no one's going to really care about that or remember it. So you always need to focus on, what do I want people to remember out of this presentation? Okay, what happens if you can't show your solution because, let's say, you don't have an MVP ready? Then you can, ideally, you just explaining it or having like text is probably the worst idea. So try to incorporate some visual elements to that. So you can have some wireframes or mockups, and wireframes are up there together with product mockups. And product roadmaps are like, if you really just have like a wide idea of what you're going to be doing, then a roadmap is also okay, but you really want to be showing some wireframes, ideally. Again, you want to focus on the key features of your solution, not everything. All right, so key aspects to remember here will be, to be straight to the point and focus on what really matters. Just focus all the time, like, what do you want people to remember? Because that's the only thing that people are going to take away from that. So just focus on the relevant things, not on all the possibilities that your solution offers. People will lose interest, right? So don't go into every single detail. This is not the meeting for that. This is the goal here is to get to that meeting. There you can talk about all the details and all the possibilities that you have, but not in this initial pitch. It's much more important to illustrate how users are going to be actually interacting with your solution, or how you expect them to do so. That is what people in the end actually care about, and what investors are also going to be caring about. But more important is, let's say you already have the MVP out there, people are actually using it. Well, then just talk about the traction. How many people are using it? What are the patterns of usage? And people like to learn in general about new things. So what is something that you've learned out of your user's experience? Is there something that might have been counterintuitive that you learned and that you want to share? These are important things to highlight in your pitch. Okay, so by now, at this point in your pitch, you will have covered about like 3 to 4 minutes, and it will be time to start wrapping things up. Of course, it's not like you just say like, all right, well, that was my presentation, see you around, and you just like walk away. That doesn't really work. So instead, you have to have an introduction, if you will, and you have to rehearse that. And so a good outro thanks the audience and tells them what to do next. You want to have like a call to action, right? So what do you want people to do? Just have listened, or do you want them to go somewhere? Just saying like, oh, here's my email, here's my Twitter, that's not going to work. So ideally, for demo day, you have something that people can interact with. So come find me in my booth later. We have some, I don't know, NFTs that are up there for the first 50 people that claim them. Something, that people can interact with that is optimal. Alrighty. And so, for example, a good outro would be, hey, I'm Sebastian. This was Pitching to Pros. I'll be happy to answer your questions later. Find me in the booth. You can get your, I don't know, demo day NFT or something like that. So call to action, super important to have. Again, the same thing. Come talk to me, find more about my project. And some final thoughts that we have here. Well, the way that you present is obviously super, super important. What actually matters the most is that you present clearly. So if you have, I think a lot of us have this sort of concern about, all right, I need to really rehearse it a lot. It needs to be like perfect. The delivery needs to be great. But in reality, what really matters more is that the structure and the contents are presented clearly. It doesn't matter if you're not, the most affable presenter or something. What really matters is that people understand what you're saying. And for that, structure and content makes all the difference. So Thank you very much. I'm Sebastian. This was Pitching the Pros, and I look forward to chatting to you in the Coffee and Mingle area. Thanks.